Hey there, have you heard about abolishing police departments, or defunding them, or dismantling them, which the Minneapolis City Council just promised to do on Sunday, June 7th? Now, all these suggestions have very different, very controversial meanings, and just because someone is using them as a slogan does not mean that they believe the most extreme possible meaning of these words. There are probably like 20,000 people in the entire country who believe that immediately abolishing all police departments is a sensible idea, and none of them are anywhere near the leadership of either of the main political parties. Heck, I've got a 10-year record on YouTube of being pretty radical on these issues, and even I think abolishing all police departments is a silly idea in the short term. Unfortunately, there are millions of people who are really invested in the current system, from law enforcement to the local news sources and national think tanks whose bread and butter is violent policing. They all want you to believe that any reform at all is crazy. They're trying to get you to think that those 20,000 abolition people represent everybody in this country who wants change. But it simply isn't true. To truly improve policing in the United States, there's going to need to be a lot of dismantling and defunding. Most countries have one policing policy and a top-down system where the central government determines what goes on in all of the country's police departments. We don't have that in the United States. We have more than 10,000 separate systems with their own unique ways of running things. In fact, we're not even entirely sure how many different law enforcement agencies we have in the United States. The current estimates put the number of criminal justice enforcement agencies in the United States at between 18,000 and 19,000, depending on how you count them. I took a quick look at a Wikipedia page that lists the agencies in Minnesota alone. It just keeps going. And there isn't much rhyme or reason here. Minneapolis and St. Paul have their own police departments. So do the counties around the Twin Cities, and so do a whole bunch of suburban cities around them. All of this involves significant duplication of administrative staff and conflicting policies, which is an especially large problem if the jurisdictions happen to overlap. Add to that state and federal regulation, officers, and funding programs, and you have a textbook case of government run amok. This is the system that conservatives are supposed to be worried about defunding and dismantling? What makes all of this worse is the fact that the past 40 years of politics around crime have made all of these redundant little police departments essentially untouchable. The crazy thing is that the Twin Cities region is probably more straightforward than most. The country is filled with bloated, rogue police departments that have achieved a horrific kind of independence from the taxpayer. They feed themselves through things like civil asset forfeiture, a practice akin to robbery, and through onerous traffic enforcement fines that disproportionately affect the poor. Back in 2014, the Washington Post published an article by Radley Balko that is probably still the article I share most often 6 years later. The Ferguson protests were about police brutality, racism, and the killing of Michael Brown, of course. But what Balko convincingly documents in this article is the way that the St. Louis suburbs have set up a malign form of feudalism where police forces exist mainly to profit from the misfortune of the poor and predominantly black. This system was a key part of Ferguson's rage. I strongly urge you to read the article. There's a link in the description. Our thousands upon thousands of law enforcement agencies are horrifically wasteful, but they also present a unique opportunity. No matter how much the Republicans want police abolition fantasies to be the center of this year's presidential election, the fact is that the federal government can really only do stuff at the margins. Power over policing in the United States is at the state and local level. The real action will be in state houses and city halls all over the country. Law enforcement lobbyists are trying to scare us out of it, but I think we are about to see an incredible range of experimentation. Some departments absolutely need to be dismantled and bundled into other ones. Different ranges of defunding will be tried. To be clear, if there isn't a massive federal government bailout for state budgets, some level of defunding is inevitable. And you know what? Some jurisdictions will screw up, majorly. A handful of those 18,000 police departments will go too far and see a spike in crime. But I'm far more worried that we will just keep on half-assing police reform the way that most of the country has since Ferguson all the way back in 2014. Because in those jurisdictions that have tried it, the rewards for dismantling and rebuilding have been extraordinary. Camden, New Jersey is another one of those cities my international audience has probably never heard of. But in the United States, this city of just 75,000 people was infamous. It was ranked as one of the most dangerous cities in the country for years, hitting #1 for violent crime in 2012. I ended up in Camden once, about 10 years ago, very much by mistake. It was the middle of the day and it was terrifying. It's the only gas station I've ever been in the United States that had no branding. No oil company wanted their name to be associated with Camden, New Jersey. They tried everything to fix the place for decades. Finally, in 2013, they abolished the police department. They consolidated city policing with the Camden County Police Department, providing more funding and stripping out multiple layers of administrative duplication. Ending the police department meant breaking the police union, which allowed for a new, healthier culture of accountability and conflict de-escalation. A new union has formed, but the department has been so successful that nobody sane wants to go back to the bad old days. Murder in Camden has fallen by 2/3. Other forms of violent crime have dropped precipitously. This is a tremendously optimistic time here in the United States. Real change is already happening. Don't let Donald Trump and his police lobby minions scare you away from it because of some confusingly worded slogans. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe and click the bell next to the subscribe button to get a notification whenever I upload a new video. Thanks.